funny.
So who's doing the editing on this?
Both of us, along with Alpine.
I like Alpine.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that guy has such a beautiful voice. Oh, I brought you this. I met Alpine when Becca and he were in the gospel choir together.
He is one of my, I'll give him brother status now. In the past couple of years, as all I've known him, we met competing at a karaoke competition in Oroville, and neither of us placed. The next year, I went back and won.
Oh, that's funny. And that's funny you talk about competition, you know.
Exactly.
I see music competitions, you know, and it's like saxophone cutting sessions or a bluegrass, fiddle championship. And that kind of makes me uneasy because in general, I've never thought of music as like a track meet where there's a winner and a loser and there's a competition. But you were asking me about, in general. Competition. I mean, I felt that from time to time. I remember when I was in my 50s and I came back trying to play with Becca. And there was a lot of competition to play on that stage, and LaSalle's was about the only one. And I saw the bands that were there, and they were good. So I just had to get the band to rehearse and woodshed a lot. And so that when we showed up and played on that stage, we sounded different. And there was something that people wanted to come back and pay for again. And, Becca, of course, won the Cammys for the best female vocalist. She was a find. What a delight to play with her. But you've got to. So I was saying, if you look at other musicians and they're on the stage and you're not, the best way to deal with it is go back and woodshed and get better, so that when you get up on stage, people want to come and see you because you got something that the other bands don't have. Yeah, there's competition, but in Chico in general, I find people are pretty good-hearted. They support each other. There's great things going on where musicians get together and collaborate and do things like that project that was people were doing out there, the Convergence thing out at Dale Price's studio. I was watching that from a distance going, that is so hip. A bunch of musicians get together and pitch in for some recording time so we can all afford to record together and then share each other's songs and help each other on it. That is true Chico. I mean, this is a community here. That is great stuff, and it kind of gives you hope that people won't be backbiting and undercutting and all those kind of nasty things, because it does happen. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest where the musicians union got to be pretty strong, and the musicians union is a variation on the Chico acoustic music scene, where people are talking together going, how do we get these club owners to pay us more? Well, one way of doing it is unionizing, but the unions kind of can turn pretty nasty too. I mean, I showed up at a gig once and there's this kind of mafia looking guy there. He comes up on the stage and he goes, "Hey, are you in the union? If not, I'm gonna poke a hole in your amplifier. Pay up now." I'm like, okay, how much? And he had this kind of sharp umbrella thing and he was pointing it at my amp, and I'm thinking, okay, so here's half of my pay, we go away now. I'm not in the union, but but I mean, the union is a way of everybody saying we're not going to play for less than this amount, and the club owners can't hire you then. And in some communities, especially big cities, that has worked. But we got to think of our club owners as brothers too. I mean, I see Eric over there at Cafe Cody. He's not rich, he's working his butt off trying to provide a stage for everybody. He's the only guy who's doing it, 4 or 5 nights a week. So you can't go and say, well, he's a jerk, he's not paying me enough, because he's not making that much either, right? You got to support guys like that. Am I talking too much?
No. We're getting lots and lots of material. We're keeping.
You're asking good questions.
Yeah.
So you got me chattering away.
We've been at it for months, so
yeah, a couple months now.
Skilled in the question asking at this point.
What do you think are some of the kind of superpowers of the Chico music scene? What do we have that's we should utilize, because we have it right
Dale
here?
Price. Dale Price is a superhero to me. I mean, Dale and I have a special relationship. He probably doesn't like me to say this too much, but he started off as my audio engineering student when I first started teaching audio engineering 2 decades ago, I think. But he's so far surpassed me. You know, I was back in the era of tape, you know, and we would like splice tapes with razor blades, you know, to try to put 2 different takes together. And, you know, Dale is so fast and so good at Pro Tools. I've worked with some of the best engineers in the country, you know, producing my PBS specials, guys who have won multiple Grammys, and Dale's better than any of them. He's so accurate and so fast, and he's got such a good ear, and he's a musician, so he edits like a musician. He's a drummer, so he can hear the tempos and where to cut. And, you know, one thing that people don't realize when they go into a studio, they look at and they ask, how much is it per hour? You know, well, if an engineer is charging you $40 an hour and he's really slow, it really costs you $80 an hour, right? If Dale is so fast, he doesn't even think about it. He's like one of those speed typists who've been typing forever, man. He's just sitting there, fixes it all up, and is like, there you go. You're done?
Well, he's in Europe right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Dale Price has done all the audio for my PBS specials, and, you know, if I can't get Dale, I try to cancel the show. I don't like to work with other audio engineers. I've done 2 or 3 shows without him because I was flying up to Vancouver or down to Vegas or something. But if it's in California, I give him a call first every time.
Yeah, every time except once I've recorded all my music at Dale's.
Yeah.
And I started by investing in my own equipment, and then played with that a little bit, and then I went up to Dale's for one album, and this is how I'm doing it from now on.
Well, I have my own equipment, but I had Dale come over here and engineer for me because I don't like to engineer myself and then try to record, and, you know, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. So I do, you know, I do acknowledge he's far surpassed me in his skills, you know, and that's a great teacher-mentor relationship to have. One of my top video guys started. I'm a full-time college professor, and so a lot of the people that work with me started off as my interns or, you know, a student who, you know, followed in my footsteps, and they always far surpass me. So this one co-producer of mine, his name's Mike Hoopengartner. He started off he applied for an internship, and I realized 3 days later that he was smarter than I was, you know. So I started putting him in charge of everything, and now we do everything together. And he's about your age. He's like 33, something like that.
Worked at Sierra Nevada, I believe.
Yes,
right?
he did. Mike was the lighting director at Sierra Nevada for years, but he's down in L.A. right now doing projects down there. And whenever I have a project, I give him a call, and he flies up and works with me. So we're still working together. So there's a lot of hidden gems here in Chico. There are there's some really talent, not just in, you know, in the musical world, but also in the support staff world, the audio engineers. Kyle Porter's another great audio engineer. And, you know, when you're out doing a gig, that sound man is the 6th man. You know, it's like if you're a basketball team and the crowd's the 6th man, you know, if you have a 5-piece band, that sound engineer, he should get paid as much as everybody else, if not more, because he's the guy that makes you sound good or don't sound good. I won't do a gig unless I have Dale or Kyle or somebody there doing the sound for me. Nothing worse than showing up and the monitors aren't working, there's feedback, you can't hear yourself, you know, distortion in the speakers, whatever. You know, if you're a pro, you do everything you can to make sure that your sound is good. When Tommy Emmanuel comes in and plays in an auditorium with one guitar, he does an hour-and-a-half sound check before the show every night, and he plays 200 shows a year. One guitar, okay? But he dials in that room so that he can play the maximum volume without feedback, and he makes sure that the guitar's not too brittle, you know, and that it's got perfect tone so that you can hear those low, warm notes when he's playing the quiet songs, and he can smack the guitar really loud without it hurting your ears. And that audio engineer gets in there and dials in one instrument, an hour-and-a-half long sound check. So, you know, you think about it, most of us get stuck. We get up on the stage and we've got 5 minutes for them to set up everything, including the drums and the guitar and your vocals, and then you go, right?
Well, that's an interesting thought is adaptability in the early part of your career, maybe as a musician. In the later part, you get to have that guy who spends an hour and a half on your thing.
Yeah.
But in the early and most part, you know, what would you like to see maybe some more those musicians trying to reach the professional level, what kind of things do they need to do?
I would suggest that you take classes in audio engineering at Butte College or Chico State if you can, and learn your craft. It's not just about learning how to play your instrument. It's learning how to get your instrument to sound good. It's one thing sitting in your living room playing your song, you know, and maybe with a circle of musicians you're playing your song, and then you get up on the stage, it's like, well, who stands where? And you know, I can't hear him, and you know, all of a sudden you're all looking at the audience instead of at each other. So you need to practice that being on stage thing, even if it's a crappy gig, just to dial in that part of it. But if you study audio engineering and you understand why the monitors are feeding back, and you know how to do a sound check quickly, you know. I learned a trick from Robin Ford, and I'd never seen this before. Robin's one of the best guitar players in the world. He's also a very good vocalist. Doing a really quick sound check, he came up to the microphone and he went like this. Started to feed back. He goes, it's feeding back right there at 8,000 cycles. Put a notch in it, you know. He could hear, and so what he did is he used the hollow of his mouth to ring out the microphone really quickly with the audio engineer. And it's little tricks like that that you pick up. You've been on stage for many, many hours and you watch other guys do it. You show up for their sound checks and figure out how they dial in their sound. Study the other musicians and see what it is that they do besides the play the pentatonic scale to get themselves to sound good.
Okay. Now,
is there enough light in here? You know, I just noticed the sunlight's going down.
We can, yeah, it is changing. You're becoming a silhouette slowly.
Is that